The great hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as Delegate Walker rose from his seat. His gray skin looked almost pale under the bright lights, and his 3 hands trembled slightly as he gripped the speaking podium. The thousands of alien representatives filling the chamber watched him with their various forms of eyes, tentacles, and sensory organs. Walker had spent 30 years representing the Centauri Alliance in galactic politics. He was known for his calm demeanor and careful diplomatic approach. But today, something was different. The assembled delegates could sense his fear. Behind him sat Ambassador Reed, Earth's representative, wearing the standard black uniform of the Human Diplomatic Corps. Reed remained perfectly still, face neutral, watching the proceedings with practiced patience. Walker cleared his throat, his voice carrying through the translation systems to reach every species present. Honored members of the Council, I come before you today with a warning about humanity. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others leaned forward, interested. 50 years ago, when we discovered Earth, we thought we had found another primitive species taking their first steps into space. We were wrong. So terribly wrong. Walker's hands gripped the podium tighter. I have spent the last 6 months witnessing what happens when humans are pushed too far, when they are threatened, when they are truly angry. The chamber's atmosphere grew tenser. A delegate from the Silicon Collective raised their crystalline form. We have all read reports of the conflict with the Dominion. Surely you are not suggesting. I am suggesting, Walker interrupted, his voice sharp, that none of you understand what we are dealing with. The reports you read were sanitized, redacted, made palatable for civilian consumption. He paused, looking around the chamber. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. The massive screens behind Walker came to life, showing maps of the galaxy. A small section blinked red, the former territory of the Dominion Empire. The Dominion was the 4th largest military power in the galaxy. They had conquered 17 species. Their fleet numbered in the thousands. Their ground forces were considered elite. Walker's voice grew quieter, forcing everyone to lean in. They don't exist anymore. Not as a military force. Not as an empire. Not even as a threat. More murmurs, louder this time. Ambassador Reed continued to sit motionless, but those closest to him swore they saw a slight smile cross his face. You all think you understand warfare, Walker continued. You think you understand violence. You don't. Humans are different. When they fight, really fight, they change. Their bodies literally transform. Their minds enter states we cannot comprehend. They become something else. He pressed a button, and the screen showed a distant image of a human soldier. The image was blurry, as if the recording device had been shaking. The soldier's skin had a reddish tint, veins clearly visible. Their eyes seemed to glow. This is what they call going berserk, an ancient term from their history. We thought it was just stories, myths. We were wrong. Walker's voice cracked slightly. I watched one of them, just one, tear through an entire Dominion combat squad with their bare hands. The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. Several delegates stood up in protest, claiming exaggeration or propaganda. Walker waited for quiet, then spoke again, his voice heavy with emotion. I am here today because humanity asked me to be here. They wanted someone neutral, someone respected, to deliver this message. He looked directly at the council leaders. Humanity does not want war. They don't seek conquest. They want peace, trade, and cooperation. But, he paused, making eye contact with various delegates. But if you attack them, if you threaten their people, if you push them too far, no force in this galaxy will be able to stop what follows. Ambassador Reed finally moved, standing slowly. The simple action caused several nearby delegates to flinch. Walker looked at his notes, then back at the assembly. Let me tell you what really happened in the Dominion War. Let me tell you why even the gods themselves would think twice before provoking humanity's wrath. The chamber fell completely silent as Walker began his story, the events of 6 months ago still fresh in his nightmares. 6 months earlier, New Eden was everything humanity hoped for in a colony world. Rolling green hills stretched toward purple mountains, while 2 moons hung in the peach-colored sky. 50,000 humans had made this their home, building cities that blended with the natural landscape. Delegate Walker remembered that morning clearly. He had been there as part of a trade delegation, staying in the colony's capital city. The sun was just rising when the first Dominion ships appeared in the sky. No one expected an attack. Walker continued his story to the council. The Dominion had been rattling their weapons for months. Yes, but actual combat against humans, it was unthinkable. The massive screens in the council chamber showed recordings from that day. Dominion warships, sleek and black, descended through New Eden's atmosphere. Their energy weapons painted the morning sky with deadly light. The Dominion's plan was simple, Walker explained, his voice tight with remembered fear. They wanted to make an example of New Eden. Show the galaxy that humans were not special, that humans could be conquered like any other species. He shook his head slowly. They didn't understand what they were dealing with. The colony's defense systems activated within seconds of the first attack. Hidden missile batteries emerged from hillsides. Energy shields, invisible until now, flickered to life over major population centers. The settlers themselves, Walker noted, didn't panic as expected. Instead, they moved with practiced precision to defensive positions. You see, Walker gestured to the screens. The Dominion made their first mistake, thinking these were just farmers and craftspeople. But on New Eden, like all human colonies, every adult had military training. Every child knew the evacuation protocols. They were ready. The recordings showed the initial battle. Dominion ground forces, confident in their superior technology, landed in the fields outside the capital. Their combat machines, towering 3 stories high, began their advance. They expected an easy victory. What happened next? Walker paused, gathering himself. What happened next changed everything we thought we knew about humans. The colony's defenders engaged the Dominion forces, but they didn't retreat into their cities. They didn't hide. They attacked. The screens showed human defenders, some in powered armor, others on foot, moving with impossible speed and coordination. Look there, Walker pointed to a particular scene. That's when we first saw it. The Berserker state. The recording zoomed in on a group of human defenders. Their skin had taken on a reddish hue. Their movements became different, faster, stronger, more aggressive. The Dominion forces found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to ignore pain, that fought with desperate fury even when wounded. Human defenders would get up from injuries that should have been fatal, their eyes glowing with an inner fire that terrified even veteran Dominion warriors. The Dominion commanders made their second mistake then, Walker continued. They thought they could break the human spirit by increasing civilian casualties. They started targeting residential areas. His voice dropped to a whisper. That's when everything changed. The recording showed the moment. As civilian targets were hit, the human defenders' response intensified. Their coordinated defense became an aggressive counterattack. The Berserker state, previously seen in just a few soldiers, spread through their ranks like a wave. I watched a single human defender, armed with just a standard rifle, charge directly at a Dominion battle walker, Walker recalled. They dodged energy blasts, leaped 30 feet straight up, and tore open the walker's armor with their bare hands. The Dominion pilot, he screamed when he saw the human's face. The council chamber remained deathly quiet as they watched the footage. The initial Dominion attack, expected to be a swift victory, had turned into a bloodbath for the attackers. But this was just the beginning, Walker said, his voice heavy. The Dominion leadership, enraged by this resistance, decided to escalate. They called in their main fleet, and that's when Earth received the distress call from New Eden. He looked directly at the assembled delegates. What came next? What humanity did next? That's when we learned why the ancient warnings about Earth existed. The screen showed the final image, a massive fleet of Earth warships emerging from hyperspace above New Eden. The real war was about to begin. Delegate Walker paused in his narrative, taking a drink of water with a trembling hand. The council chamber remained silent, all eyes fixed on him. The screens behind him now showed the Earth Defense Command Center, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. What you must understand, Walker continued, is that the attack on New Eden wasn't just an assault on a colony. For humans, it was an attack on their children, their families, their future. He looked around the chamber. I was there when Earth received the distress call. I saw something I never want to see again. Humans getting organized for total war. The screens displayed Admiral Stone, the commander of Earth's 7th Fleet, a tall woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that seemed to burn with cold fire. She stood before a massive holographic display showing the situation at New Eden. Standard response protocols weren't enough, Walker explained. Admiral Stone activated something called the Berserker Initiative. Even most humans didn't know it existed. But that day, every military commander received the same message. Authorization Crimson. The gloves come off. The Council watched as ships of Earth's 7th Fleet prepared for battle. But these weren't normal preparations. Medical teams moved through the crews, administering injections. Soldiers underwent rapid biological changes. Their muscles densified. Their eyes developed a faint glow. The humans had found a way. Walker's voice grew quieter. To control the berserker state, to trigger it intentionally. They could now direct that terrifying combat potential at will. Footage showed human crews entering their combat stations. Their movements were different now, faster, more precise. Their skin had a slight reddish tint, and their reflexes were visibly enhanced. Other species tried to intervene diplomatically. Walker continued. The Trade Federation, the Silicon Collective, even my own people, we all warned Earth about escalation, about the dangers of full-scale war. He laughed bitterly. We were trying to protect the Dominion. We should have been trying to protect ourselves from what we were about to witness. The screen showed the 7th Fleet entering hyperspace. 500 ships, each carrying crews in various stages of combat enhancement. But it wasn't just the military that was mobilizing. Earth's civilian response was equally frightening, Walker said. Factories switched to military production within hours. Retired soldiers reported for duty voluntarily. Research laboratories began releasing classified combat technologies. It was like watching an entire species transform into a war machine. The council members shifted uncomfortably as they watched the footage. Human civilians working with incredible speed and precision, building weapons and ships, children being evacuated from border worlds. Every human seemed to move with purpose, with a controlled fury that was terrifying to witness. Then came the diplomatic message, Walker continued. Earth's response to the Dominion's attack. It was short. The screens showed the text. You attacked our children. There will be no mercy. The Dominion leadership laughed at the message, Walker said. They thought it was empty bravado. They had conquered 17 species. They commanded thousands of warships. Their ground forces were legendary. He shook his head slowly. They didn't understand what they had awakened. The screen showed the 7th Fleet emerging from hyperspace near New Eden. But these ships were different from normal human vessels. Their hulls pulsed with strange energy. Their weapons systems had been modified with technologies that even the most advanced species didn't recognize. Admiral Stone's first action shocked everyone, Walker said. She broadcast a message to all non-Dominion ships in the sector. Clear the area. What you're about to see isn't for your eyes. Walker looked down at his hands, still trembling. Those of us who stayed to watch, we will never forget what happened next. The humans didn't just fight. They didn't just attack. He struggled to find the words. They showed us why ancient spacefaring races had marked Earth's solar system with warning beacons, why old legends spoke of the world of warriors, why some species had nightmares about humans long before we ever met them. The screen showed the 7th Fleet moving into attack formation. The real demonstration of humanity's combat potential was about to begin. Delegate Walker's 3 hands gripped the podium tighter as he continued his story. The council chamber screens now showed the space above New Eden, where the Dominion fleet faced Earth's 7th Fleet. The Dominion commander was confident, Walker said. He had 3 times the number of ships. His crews were veterans of a dozen conquests. He even broadcast a message to Admiral Stone, offering her the chance to surrender. A bitter smile crossed his face. That was his final mistake. The screen showed Admiral Stone's response. She stood on her bridge, her eyes now glowing with an intense inner light. Her voice, when she spoke, carried an otherworldly resonance that made even the recording feel threatening. Her exact words were, "You attacked our children. Now face the consequences." Walker paused. That's when we witnessed true human combat potential for the first time. The footage showed human ships charging directly at the Dominion fleet, not in the careful, strategic formations that most species used, but in aggressive, almost suicidal attack patterns. The Dominion commanders were confused. This went against all known military doctrine. What happened next? Walker's voice trembled. The humans. They changed. Not just their bodies now, but their very way of thinking. Their ships moved in ways we thought impossible. Their reactions were faster than our best combat computers. And their fury was something ancient and terrible. The screens displayed multiple views of the battle. Human crews, their skin now a deep red, veins pulsing with enhanced blood flow, operated their ships like extensions of their own bodies. Their vessels pulled maneuvers that should have torn them apart or killed their crews with G-forces. "Look there," Walker pointed. The footage zoomed in on a human cruiser. It had taken heavy damage, its hull breached in multiple places. By all normal logic, that ship should have retreated or surrendered. Instead, the damaged cruiser accelerated directly toward a Dominion battleship 3 times its size. The human crew, exposed to vacuum in some sections, continued fighting. Their eyes glowed bright enough to be seen through their helmet visors. The cruiser rammed the battleship, its remaining weapons firing point-blank. Both ships were destroyed, Walker said. But that human crew, they were smiling as they made their final attack. The Dominion commanders couldn't understand it. How could any species fight like this? How could they ignore such basic survival instincts? The battle continued on the screens. Human ships, even when critically damaged, fought with increasing ferocity. Their weapons, enhanced by classified technologies, tore through Dominion shields like paper. Their targeting systems, guided by crews in full Berserker state, achieved impossible accuracy. But the space battle wasn't the worst part, Walker continued, his voice dropping. The ground combat. That's what gave birth to the new galactic laws about human warfare. The screen shifted to show New Eden's surface. Human defenders, now fully transformed by their combat enhancements, engaged Dominion ground forces. Single human soldiers took on entire squads. Their movements were blur-fast, their strength horrifying. "We watched one human soldier," Walker said, "break through a Dominion tank's armor with their bare hands. Another ran 3 miles in under 4 minutes to reach an enemy position, carrying heavy weapons the whole way. They weren't just fighting anymore. They were demonstrating why humanity had survived all the disasters in their violent history." The council members watched in stunned silence as the footage showed more examples of enhanced human combat capabilities. Soldiers healing from serious wounds in minutes, others demonstrating strength and speed that seemed impossible, all while their eyes burned with that terrifying inner light. The Dominion forces began to retreat, Walker said. Not just retreat, they ran. Veteran warriors, who had never shown fear in battle, fled in terror, but it was too late. The humans had awakened fully to their combat potential, and they weren't going to stop until they had their revenge. The screen showed the battle's turning point. the moment when the entire human fleet's crews entered what they called peak Berserker state simultaneously. The Dominion's mighty armada was about to learn why ancient species had feared Earth. The council chamber remained deathly quiet as Delegate Walker continued his story. The screens now showed the aftermath of the initial battle at New Eden, where the Dominion's mighty fleet lay in ruins. What followed, Walker said, his voice hollow, was not a war in any traditional sense. It was humanity showing the galaxy why they had spent centuries holding themselves back. Why they had chosen peace when they could have had conquest. The screens displayed Earth's response to the New Eden attack, not just the 7th Fleet now, but the full might of human military power. Ships emerged from hidden bases throughout their territory. Weapons platforms, previously disguised as mining stations, revealed their true nature. The humans had a saying. Walker continued. Enough is enough. After New Eden, they decided they had been too patient with the Dominion's aggression. Admiral Stone received new orders from Earth Command. Show them why Earth was quarantined before first contact. The footage showed human warships advancing into Dominion space, but these weren't the same ships from the New Eden battle. These vessels carried experimental weapons that the humans had kept hidden. Look at this, Walker pointed to a particular scene. A single human destroyer approached a Dominion defense station. Its hull began to glow with strange energy. The humans called it quantum cascade technology. We had thought such weapons were impossible. The destroyer fired. The beam didn't damage the station. It simply made it cease to exist. The matter converted instantly to energy. The council members watched in horror as they realized humanity had weapons that defied their understanding of physics. But the weapons weren't what terrified the Dominion most, Walker said. It was the human soldiers themselves. Every human warrior was now operating in Berserker state. Their ships moved as extensions of their enhanced bodies. Their strategies became impossible to predict. The screens showed human ground forces landing on Dominion worlds. Soldiers in powered armor, their eyes glowing like small suns, tore through defenses that had stood for centuries. Even without their advanced technology, the humans were unstoppable in close combat. I tried to negotiate peace, Walker's voice cracked. I met with human commanders, begged them to show mercy. Their response? He shuddered. They said mercy was an option before they targeted our children. The council watched as the Dominion's mighty empire began to crumble. World after world fell, not to occupation, but to precise strikes that crippled military capabilities while largely sparing civilian populations. The humans weren't interested in conquest. This was purely punishment. The most frightening part. Walker looked around the chamber. The humans later revealed they were only using about 20% of their true military capability. They held back their worst weapons, their most dangerous technologies. They showed restraint even in their rage. The screens displayed a Dominion warship attempting to surrender. The human vessels surrounded it, their crew's enhanced state visible even through view screens. The Dominion crew reported feeling primal terror just looking at the humans' glowing eyes. In just 3 months, Walker continued, the humans dismantled an empire that had stood for 2,000 years. They didn't occupy territory. They didn't demand resources. They simply destroyed every military asset the Dominion had, while broadcasting a single message. Let this be a lesson. The footage showed the final battle. A desperate Dominion counterattack met by waves of human ships. The Berserker state had spread through the entire human fleet, creating a force that moved with impossible coordination. It wasn't just combat. It was art in its most terrible form. When it was over, Walker said quietly, when the Dominion's fleet was reduced to scattered debris and their ground forces had surrendered, the humans did something unexpected. They stopped. Just stopped. Their soldiers powered down their weapons. Their ships returned to normal operation. The Berserker state faded. He looked at the assembled delegates, but we all knew the truth now. We had seen what humanity could do when provoked, and we knew we never wanted to see it again. The screen showed the final image: a human soldier, eyes still glowing, standing amid the ruins of a Dominion fortress, a warning to the galaxy about the sleeping giant they had awakened. Delegate Walker's voice grew softer as he continued his story. The council chamber's screens now showed the aftermath of humanity's campaign against the Dominion. The images were no longer of battles, but of consequences. Victory, Walker said, looking at his trembling hands, has many faces. What we witnessed next showed us a different side of humanity, one that was perhaps even more frightening than their warfare. The screens displayed the Dominion's capital world, not in ruins, as many expected, but transformed. Human medical ships arrived instead of warships. Their crews, still showing faint signs of the Berserker state, now worked to help civilian populations they had so recently fought against. The humans called it Operation Aftermath, Walker explained. But there was a problem. Their soldiers, their crews, they couldn't simply turn off the Berserker state like flipping a switch. Something had changed in them. Something fundamental. The footage showed human soldiers struggling with their enhanced state. Their eyes still glowed, though dimmer now. Their movements remained too fast, too powerful for normal interaction. Earth's military command faced a crisis they hadn't fully prepared for. Imagine, Walker said, millions of warriors, each powerful enough to tear through metal with their bare hands, trying to return to peaceful life. The humans had protocols for this, but nothing on this scale. Nothing that accounted for so many of their people transformed at once. The screen shifted to show specialized rehabilitation centers Earth had built, enhanced soldiers learning to control their strength, to slow their reactions, to dim the fire that still burned in their eyes. Some succeeded. Others struggled. But while their military dealt with the Berserker aftermath, something else was happening. Walker continued. The Dominion's empire was collapsing. 17 conquered species suddenly found themselves free. Millions of refugees needed help. And the humans, he paused. The humans helped them all. The council watched as human ships, the same ones that had brought such destruction, now delivered aid and supplies. Their crews, still partially enhanced, used their increased strength and speed to rebuild what they had destroyed. This was the moment, Walker said, when many of us realized something crucial about humans. Their capacity for violence was matched only by their capacity for compassion. The same enhanced soldiers who had torn through Dominion defenses now gently helped injured civilians. The same ships that had unleashed impossible weapons now carried food and medicine. The screen showed more scenes from across former Dominion space. Freed species rebuilding their worlds, helped by the very force that had shattered their oppressors. Human-enhanced troops, their eyes still glowing faintly, working alongside alien civilians to restore cities. The Dominion's leadership faced their own crisis, Walker continued. Their military was gone. Their empire had crumbled. But instead of executing them, the humans did something unexpected. They forced them to help with the reconstruction, to face the consequences of their actions not through death, but through service. Images showed former Dominion leaders working alongside their former slaves, supervised by human troops whose enhanced state served as a constant reminder of what happens when humanity is provoked. But the greatest challenge, Walker's voice grew quieter, was for the humans themselves. How do you return to normal life after experiencing such power? How do you cage the beast once it's been fully awakened? The screens displayed Earth's military command centers, where scientists and doctors worked desperately to help their enhanced soldiers return to normal. Some succeeded quickly, others took months. A few never fully returned to their previous state. The humans had won, Walker said, but victory carried a price. They had revealed capabilities they had hidden for centuries. They had shown the galaxy their true potential, and in doing so, they had changed everything, including themselves. The final images showed human ships returning home, their crews forever changed by what they had experienced. Enhanced soldiers trying to readjust to civilian life. And in orbit around every human world, new warning beacons installed by other species. Approach with peaceful intent only. human territory. Delegate Walker stood silent for a moment, gathering his thoughts as he prepared to conclude his testimony. The council chamber remained hushed, the earlier scenes of human power still fresh in everyone's minds. "And so we return to today," Walker said, his voice stronger now. "You ask why I stand before you with this warning. Because I see the same signs again. The same mistakes being made by those who think humanity can be pressured, threatened, or controlled." The screen showed current images of human space. Their worlds had recovered from the war. Their military had adapted their Berserker protocols, and their technology had advanced even further. But something else had changed. The humans themselves carried themselves differently now, with the quiet confidence of a species that no longer needed to hide its strength. "You all received reports last week," Walker continued. "Reports about trade disputes with human colonies, about military exercises near their borders, about proposed sanctions against Earth." He shook his head slowly. "You fools. You utter fools." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Several looked away from the human ambassador, who sat watching with that same calm expression that now seemed far more threatening than before. "Let me be clear," Walker's voice carried across the chamber. "What you saw in my testimony, what you witnessed in those recordings, that was humanity holding back, using, as they told us, only a fraction of their true military potential. They have weapons they didn't use, technologies they kept hidden, capabilities they never fully unleashed." The screens displayed classified images that made several delegates gasp. Massive structures hidden in human space, weapon systems beyond current galactic understanding, and research facilities that suggested humanity's technology was far beyond what they showed the galaxy. "Do you know what humans call the Dominion War now?" Walker asked. "They call it a limited police action, a simple response to a simple threat. Nothing more." He let that sink in. They have ancient records, myths of wars that make the Dominion conflict look like a children's game. And now, thanks to their enhanced soldiers, they remember why those myths existed. Ambassador Reed finally stood, walking slowly to stand beside Walker. The human's presence caused several nearby delegates to lean away instinctively. "Look at him," Walker gestured to Reed. "Look carefully. Do you see the faint glow in his eyes? All their diplomats now carry the Berserker gene, ready to activate at a moment's notice, a reminder of what they can become." The screen showed new data about human space. Their production capabilities had tripled. Their military, while smaller, had been completely modernized. And most importantly, every human colony now had defensive capabilities that matched their homeworld. "So here is my warning." Walker's voice grew firm. "Leave them alone. Accept their terms for trade. Respect their borders. Because if you don't, if you push them into another demonstration of their power, what happened to the Dominion will seem merciful in comparison." Ambassador Reed finally spoke, his voice carrying that subtle resonance that all humans now seem to possess. "We don't want war. We never did. But we will never again hide what we are. Never again pretend to be less than we are. The galaxy now knows the truth. Humanity isn't just another species. We are what your ancestors warned you about." Walker nodded slowly. "The humans have a saying. Those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. I stand here because I don't want to see history repeated. Because I've seen what happens when humans go berserk. I've seen what they become when their fury is unleashed. And I tell you now, no power in this galaxy, no technology, no strategy, not even the gods themselves can save you if you provoke them again." The council chamber remained silent as Walker gathered his papers. The screen showed one final image, a simple warning beacon, now standard across the galaxy, showing the human eye with a faint glow and the words, "This territory borders human space. Approach with peaceful intent only. There will be no second warning." Ambassador Reed smiled slightly as he returned to his seat. The message had been delivered. The galaxy would remember, and humanity could return to what they preferred: peace through strength, cooperation through respect, and progress without conflict. until the next fool decided to test them.